Hello there, it's Tim, G5TM. Thanks for joining me again from a new venue. Anyway, tonight we're going to have a quick look at the Cobweb antenna. Well, thanks for stopping by. If this is your first time, then think about clicking that subscribe button and the notification bell for any future videos. And if you're a regular or someone who's been here before, then welcome back and nice to have you on board again. By the way, apologies for the slight echoey nature of the sound for this video. I'm filming it in the new shack and there'll be a separate video about that shortly, which is fairly empty apart from a little desk with a radio on at the moment and one or two other little things. And hopefully as we fill the space up, things will sound a little less like we're in a cave. But apologies for that, and I hope it doesn't spoil your enjoyment of the video too much. So, as you may or may not have been aware, in the past couple of weeks, there's been a nice increase in the SFI and also the sunspots, which has led to the higher bands starting to wake up, most notably 17 and 15 and occasionally 10 and 12 as well. Now, that has led me to think about, well, if we're going to put up an antenna just for the higher bands, which takes up not a lot of room in a small garden, what antenna could we put up? Well, in the past, and I'll put a link up there for you, I have looked at a 33-foot doublet for the higher bands, and it works really, really well. But if you didn't want to use a tuner or go to the expense of buying one, and you wanted a truly resonant antenna with a really low footprint, then I think the Cobweb might be the antenna that you could consider. So then, what is a Cobweb? Well, what a Cobweb is basically a full-size dipole which has been bent into practically a square shape. It's a series of fan dipoles, and the size of the antenna is really small. It's basically, in terms of imperial measurements, 8 foot by 8 foot by 8 foot by 8 foot square. In terms of metric, that's just under 2.5 meters, I believe. And within that, then, you have a series of basically folded fan dipoles. So you've got 20 meters, 17, 15, 12, 10. You can also have a variant of 6 meters on it. And in fact, if you wanted to double the size of it, you can fit in a 40-meter version as well. So it's a very, very good antenna. And it has certain different properties, although it's quite similar as well, but it has certain different properties to a standard dipole. So the good thing about the Cobweb is the antenna elements are all full-size dipoles, but of course they're bent into a square. And what that does is make the antenna essentially omnidirectional. It's less directional than a flat-top dipole, for example. And a lot of people say that because it's a purely horizontal antenna and omnidirectional, it means, of course, you don't need to use a rotator for it. And a lot of people swear by the fact that the Cobweb is somehow, well, quieter than a normal dipole. Another advantage of its omnidirectional nature is the fact you don't get many nulls as well. So unlike a dipole where you do have nulls off the end of the antenna, with a Cobweb you can think of it like basically a dipole folded into a square, which allows it to become omnidirectional, and that's the essential benefit of the design. As well, of course, as its very small, comparatively speaking, footprint. If you think about it, an 8-foot square antenna, which looks like a glorified washing line, could give you 5 bands. And typically, people use Cobwebs from 20 meters and up, usually between 20 and 10, but occasionally with 6 meters included as well. Let's have a look at a couple of designs of the Cobweb. There are 2 main designs with a slight spelling difference as well. Let's have a look at them. So there are 2 ways then to make a Cobweb antenna. The original design was by G3TPW. That's Steve Webb with a double B, hence the spelling Cobweb with a double B on the end. That's using speaker wire to form folded dipoles, so double wires basically. Or you've got the G3TXQ design, the later design. That's spelling with a single B, and that's using single core wire and a 1:4 balun. Let's have a look then at the differences between them, and first of all we'll check out the original G3TPW version. So the G3TPW version is constructed basically out of twin lead multi-strand copper wires, such as speaker cables for example. And one wire in each dipole is left whole, and the other is broken in the middle and connected to the coax. And the 2 leads are shorted some distance away from the centre in each side of the dipole. And these are the actual feed points of the dipole itself. Alternative version is by Steve Hunt, G3TXQ. Now his wires are single core, not twin as per the other design. And what he decided to do was to form the dipole into a square shape as well. But when you do that, of course, with a single wire dipole, the impedance presented drops to around 12.5 ohms. Therefore, he constructed a Guanella 1:4 current balun. This is mounted inside the terminal box that you can see at the bottom. And this basically then brings up the impedance to somewhere near 50 ohms, which is expected, of course, by your transceiver. So there you go, the Cobweb. And with these higher HF bands starting to wake up as we climb out of solar minima, you can think of it possibly as a decent sort of investment that you can make over the next few months and couple of years, because let's face it, 17, 15, 12 and 10 are going to start to really begin to wake up. Next summer should be an interesting proposition for those bands. And buying a Cobweb or making your own is possibly an attractive option for you, especially if you have a fairly small garden, like we have, like many of us have anyway, in the UK. The cost of these Cobwebs, well, if you buy one off the shelf, you're probably looking at around £150 to £200. MFJ make one, although I know on eHam there's some varying reviews and ratings for them in terms of the craftsmanship, should we say, of the antenna. There are some good makers of the Cobweb as well in the UK who tend, I think, to sell stuff on eBay. So have a look at those too. But generally, I think you're looking at around about £200, just over $200, I guess, for one of those antennas. You can buy a QRO version as well. I think MFJ make one, which is rated a lot higher in terms of the power. But generally, you know, 100 watts on the Cobweb, and you should do pretty well. Of course, if you want to make your own, there's various designs on the internet too. So check those out too if you want to save yourself a bit of money. The only disadvantages that people tend to say about the Cobweb is the fact that they can be finicky to tune. And don't forget, if you bring them down to sort of 6 foot level to tune before you put them up, then you tend to find, of course, that the impedance will be different. So you've got to take that into account as well when you're tuning them. And there may be a degree of interaction. A lot of people said, for example, 12 and 10 meters are very difficult to live together on the same antenna. So lots of people forego one or the other, but it must be possible to tune, so it's worth looking at that. The other thing too is that, for example, for 10 meters, you're not going to get the full band. It's quite a big band, so you've got to decide whether or not you're a data person, a CW person, or a voice person. You probably won't get the FM portion as well as the SSB portion of 10 meters. So you've got to be, you've got to be quite realistic about that. And one or two people also say that when it rains, the impedance shifts, the SWR shifts on the antenna, and that it can be one of those antennas where your SWR may vary in the wet weather. But a lot of people swear by them, and certainly for the size of antenna, they seem to give you plenty of choice to work with. In terms of the height of the antenna, well, lots of people reckon you can use them around 15 or 20 feet up, and if you look at the higher HF bands, 20 meters, which is the lowest band you generally find on a Cobweb. Half wave there is 33 feet. A half wave high on 17 is about 26 feet. If you get it up about 25, 30 feet, you're going to do pretty well with one of these antennas. But there's plenty of people who have used them and got really good results, even as low as 10 to 15 feet on the higher HF bands. But, as with a normal dipole, if you get it anywhere near half wavelength up in the air, then you're going to do pretty well with it. And the Cobweb is really no different. So there you go. I hope that's given you some input into what a Cobweb is like. I'm considering getting one perhaps in a year or two once these higher HF bands really start to rock. Because I've got a fairly small garden, and to be honest with you, an antenna which is 8 foot square, 8 foot by 8 foot by 8 foot, well, that's got to be worth consideration, isn't it? Anyway, thanks for watching. As I say, if you like what you see and you fancy joining aboard, then click subscribe, and that thumbs up button would be lovely as well, just so you can show me that you're okay with what I'm producing. And if there's anything you think I could do better, or any sort of hints and tips or advice you can give me, then don't be afraid to do so as well. Thanks for watching. This is Tim G5TM wishing you good luck, and check out those higher HF bands. 73.